All right. That said, let's move on to the main topic, the road to Fanfest, which they actually named the patch that I found. Well, it's the road to Fanfest first round of updates. That's kind of cool. Intrepid Capsuleers. As EVE Online picks up speed in 2022, many of the exciting updates introduced in the Road to Fanfest blog are now live in-game. Balance changes, new player focuses improvements, visual enhancements, and more are set to propel New Eden. I'm not going to read this whole thing. There's a lot to go over, so we're just going to say thanks for the feedback on the Singularity server. New player mining experience. We played through this again yesterday. It's basically a small mining event or a small secondary component of the MPE that involves going to a place and learning about some mining information that is way better than any of the mining career agents. Quality of life improvements surrounding player-owned customs offices. It'll be worth paying attention to see if any of the movers and shakers decide to do anything with this going on. In addition, players can now warp directly to the gantry when it's placed in space. Ooh, that's neat. Better lighting effects, which I always like. There's always people that complain about the lighting, like, oh my God, graphical updates. Why would you even do that? Because it looks nice, and everybody always complain. Like, everybody praises how EVE looks because of all of that effort, right? Like, it's one step at a time. Compress to impress. The big one, we have ore and gas compression. The compression update to include moon compression, gas compression, orca compression, porpoise compression, and all that kind of stuff. So, as we've seen, or as they described before, you now have a new kind of what amounts to a burst, like a command burst, that when you fire it off, everybody within range can then do compression for that period of time. So there is, I mean, as far as solutions go, there are still some people that were unhappy with bits and pieces of it. In particular, one of the ones that people like to that I've seen people gripe about is the fact that it used to be that when you right-clicked compress, it just compressed it. But now it actually opens up a window in the same way that reprocessing does, that gives you, that tells you which is which. But honestly, I think that that's probably, it's less of an issue of adding quote unquote needless UI and more that the old UI, the old one probably should have had that interface first. The other one that I've heard is the gas decompression, but ultimately that I don't buy that argument, because the thing is that, like, you're only looking at it that way because it's a change. I look at it like gas had an unfair advantage because it didn't need to get reprocessed, and that got corrected. There is actually, that's correct. They forgot to seed the blueprints, and I don't believe that they're going to be able to seed it before tomorrow. So no one can compress today. No one can compress today. That's really funny. There's no compression today. Oh no, you can press. Can you compress in stations now at all? Yeah, you can. You can compress in stations. There is compression. I mean, on the one hand, it's a major oversight. On the other hand, like, the people that are implementing the change and pushing the code and getting it ready for prime time, like, the idea of seeding those BPOs on the market is a totally separate task. So while I'm not excusing it, I could definitely see how that in particular could be one of those things that slips through the cracks as you go through, your deployment process. They added it everywhere else. They just forgot to add it to the seed window menus or, quantities. All right. Another big one, Battleship buffs. We were unsure that we were going to get this one today, but we did. It is a 50% increase in the effectiveness of all armor plating, a 100% increase in all the effectiveness of all shield extenders, and a 5% increase, also known as the Ashtarothi bump, to hull hit point bonus from reinforced bulkheads. And also the micro jump drive fitting requirements have been reduced substantially. Plus, there's going to be a sale on the New Eden store. So we'll look at that next. If you are crabbing with this is the capital road drone beacon. There's now improved rewards from this activity in the form of a decrease in the loyalty point cost for the beacon blueprint, so it's cheaper to make, as well as an increase in the amount of road drone infestation data. That's the red loot. So this isn't going to impact the price of the mutaplasmids, but it is going to just give you a base payout on top of that that's higher. Bolstered bulkheads. In the surgical strike patch, they nerfed all resistance modules, and for bolstered bulkheads, they are undoing a portion of that. They said half, but when I looked at the actual chart, which we'll look at in a second, it looks like it's more than half restored. Oh yeah, launching fireworks. That's a good idea. And yep, that's it for now. We also, of course, believe we will have the mining update, or the mining event that starts tomorrow. I did post on the YouTubes this morning the discussion yesterday where we went over everything that we know, like how the sites will work. I obviously can't run them right now. That'll be tomorrow, but they're the same sites that we've seen before. So I described them. Also, all of the fits are on Eve Workbench and linked in that video, as well as a bunch of other videos of people running Resource Wars sites. On to patch notes. Lots. Updated audio engine to the latest version. Cool. Music, sound effects for the MP Mining Avenger. It slaps. Well, now we have to go back through it and listen and see whether or not we agree. Default audio level for world sounds increased. All right, so brand new role bonuses have been added to all battleships except for the Praxis, which are the ones that we just talked about. Okay, so here we go. If the EM energized membrane was 32%, it went down to 26%, or rather 27% after the Tyrosite happened, and it went back up to 31.2%. That feels like more than half of its effectiveness back, right? Like 32 to 27 is 2.5 would be down, so it would be 30% even if it was truly half. Well, hold on. 27. Yeah. A little bit less. A little bit, like 31 and some, or 30 and some change. Not 31 and some change. Either way, I don't know. This, well, actually, maybe I'm just wrong, because this one is obviously 50% of it back. I might have just not been able to do my math. Or maybe the 27% just confused me. Either way, all of our resistance modules are now better again. This is going to help people in the Abyss. This is going to help people in all kinds of, like, the highest end PvE. One of the biggest effects of this nerf was that, like, in the most case, it just made fits more expensive because everybody had to go one tier up in their modules used to get the same effect. But if you're already using X types, there's nowhere to go from there. So this is really going to support people that use those highest end ones the most. The power grade has been reduced to 800 from 1375. That's quite a bit. And the CPU to 54 from 77. That's like nearly a third. Quick math. Or down by a third, I mean, so 2/3. Reflection maps, we're going to check those out. Improved texture qualities on asteroids. Localized text for the new content. Industrial reconfiguration skill for Orca. We have the medium industrial core for the Porpoise and the gas asteroid compressor for the Porpoise. The large gas, ice, mercoxic, moon ore, and asteroid ore compressors for the Orca, and the same for the Rockwall. Also, apparently, these two mining lasers didn't have any residue stats at all, so they just gave them residue stats of 0, so it still won't provide residue. Compression, we know about that. This is the rules of how compression works. Rockwall and Orca can compress all resources. The capacity of jet cans have been doubled. This is a goddamn lie. Sorry. Yeah, this is just telling you about where they're all seated. Apparently, they're going to be in the Navy stations, in theory. So this is actually a bigger one. This I feel is something that is a correction of what was wrong about the residue mechanic from the very beginning. Basically, the way that it worked before was, let's say there's 750 minerals in a rock, or sorry, 750 ore in a rock, and I have a cycle of 500 and waste triggers. Well, my waste is also 500. So the way it would currently work, or the way it worked yesterday, is that the 500 would be destroyed by waste, and then you would receive 250 because the waste was taken out first. So that last cycle on any given rock was likely, if you got a waste, was likely to be cutting into how much you mined. This corrects that. Now, the mining amount always gets taken out first. And if there's any remaining, then the waste can apply to that. Did they give Alpha's reaction 1? I don't think that changed. They made it so that compression now compresses to a kind of a 1-to-1 thing. It just makes it now smaller. So the old compressed stuff is now called batch compressed. More compression. Porpoise now has a fuel bay for their core. So this is kind of misleading because it looks like it's a buff in their stuff, but they actually had their capabilities cut down in order to compensate for this. So the Porpoise didn't get much, if any, stronger. They just now need to use the core to get their full strength. But they get compression. Orca fuel bay has been increased because now you have to have the... Does the compressor use fuel? Does the compressor use fuel? I think they just have it because of the need for... I don't think so. Yeah, compressor does not need fuel. Exactly. All right, so the extra fuel is just for being able to run the core, I assume. Yeah, just to fuel the core. Got it. And the blueprint for the core is on Tranquility, if I understand correctly. Yeah, it is. Yeah, an ice, right? It is ice. No, gas and asteroid ore. It's gas and asteroid ore. It wasn't ice. That's right. Because the idea is the shattered wormhole and back and forth about that. It seems that CCP does not want the Porpoise to allow us to extract ice easier out of shattered wormholes. So you can get the gas and the ore. Back to where we were. 5% bonus to mining foreman burst range has now been made visible, so that's not actually a change, it's just now visible. Same with the rock wall. Oh, the epithal. So the epithal is the PI hauler. But the problem is that the epithal doesn't have enough room to carry command centers that are required to set up your PI. So you'd have to have like one ship that you use to like launch your command centers for the first time, and then you use the epithal from then on. This just gives the epithal enough cargo, a hold with enough capacity to hold your 6 command centers, which should be all you need. Yes, this is unironically an amazingly good change. Like, a lot of people, this probably gets downplayed, especially with everything else coming out this patch, but this is a huge quality of life change. The new skills, which these were available from Ore. I don't know how they're available as of today. Does anybody know how they're available as of today? Compression array can no longer be anchored. Not in the patch notes. Whoopsie. The Tatara base reprocessing efficiency bonus has been increased. Wow. The biggest so the biggest difference between a Tatara and an Athanor is that the Tatara has better refinement. So this just feels like they needed a better, like they needed to reward having a Tatara over an Athanor more. They weren't seeded either? Yay! Custom office gantry is now globally visible when deployed in the solar system. Oh, that's nasty. That's actually nasty. I didn't realize that they were doing that. So now it's basically, it shows up on your overview no matter where you are in the system. You can just warp directly to it. And it creates a suspect flag. That's nasty. And it's been increased to 15 minutes. It was like 15 seconds. No, it was 30 seconds and 5 seconds. There you go. So now it takes 30 minutes total to anchor a POCO, whereas before it took 35 seconds, plus the time it takes for you to move in the PI. This is the crab beacon notes. Fitting warning is now being displayed when fitting undersized modules. This is great. You know what I want for Christmas? I want the different damage modules to look different. That's all I want. Just let them look different. Don't have 4 modules that are very similar, but all have the same image, but only one is applicable at a time, and the others are always wrong. Like, just don't do that. Unique icons for T2 ammo doesn't make any sense though, because like just as T2 ships have roughly the same appearance as T1 ships, the color of the T2 ammo tells you what type of T1 ammo invents into it, right? Like Void is black because antimatter is black. Although, that being said, the Triglavians managed to have T2 ammo that both looks unique and also like corresponds in a very logical way to that's true, but yeah, you can always just right click on your module and select from there. I do agree that you could make it look different in it, like maybe there should be something else like a glow around a T2 items in the picture. Anywho, the new compression window is now presented to players who are using the compress action. This is by far the most complained about piece of this feature that I have seen so far, which pretty much tells me that the changes that they made were pretty good. The new window is designed to be as fast as possible to interact with. Speaking directly to the complaints, it is open after choosing to compress resources. There's no drag and drop functionality. New decompression window is now available for decompressing gas. it makes me wonder why there is a window in the first place. If they're working so hard to make it as non-intrusive as possible, why have it? I suspect that there's some reason. Like, for instance, they used the concepts of like reprocessing in this thing, but hard to say. Symbols for the different categories are now visible in the corporation skill plans. The new MPE stuff. Ice belts not correctly completing after the belt has been depleted. This time we mean it. We talked about this during the last economic report, but they've been having problems getting ice belts to spawn correctly for a while now. Why is there a specialized PI hauler? Because the Galente ship... So actually there's a really good reason for that. Because there used to be a whole bunch of Iteron. Iteron Mark 1, Iteron Mark 2, Iteron Mark 3, Iteron Mark 4. But when they rebalanced the haulers, they made it so that each faction had their own advantage in their hauler, but they only had one primary hauler, which meant they had to do something with all of the other haulers, and the Galente had the most other haulers because of the Iteron series. So what they did was they took all of those other ones, all of the other Iterons, and they changed them into other different kinds of ships and gave each of them a different unique hold. So you have one for ore, one for minerals, and one for PI. And then to the Mimitar one, they gave this special ammo hold. So that's why. Also, they have it specifically so they don't have to ever buff the Primus. Ships with active siege, triage, industrial core modules will now be correctly blocked from jumping through a wormhole. Oh man, there's so many wormholers that are mad about this, but it's kind of funny. I mean, this is legitimately a fix that probably needed to happen, but people were using cord orcas to just destroy wormholes. Clone jumping from an upwell structure now works correctly. That's one of those patch notes that makes me very concerned. Like, wait, how did it not work correctly? Can I petition for something? Skipping the MPE will now will have a new character's Corvette correctly fit with a mining laser. Oh, is it a bug on Sissy? Why would it be in the patch notes if it never touched Trank? Well, whatever. Turrets fitted to the wings of the pacifier no longer clip into it during warp. Appropriate reflections of dynamic light and sunlight are displaying properly in small crevices of ships and structures. Fixed an issue where intrusions in the main bank in the encounter surveillance system would show up under the reserve bank in the agency. Whatever. Fixed an issue causing the F11 universe map to close when Control Tab hide all windows. When using Control Tab hide all windows. Who wants to bet that this patch note exists just to remind everybody that the F11 universe map exists? Fix an issue that could cause the industry preview window to occasionally overlap with other industry preview windows. Added messaging when trying to deploy a command center from a structure. Added a notification to the multi-cell window to warn capsuleers when they're trying to sell multiple items, though through the personal asset window from multiple locations. Why would you even just let that be done? Oh, I see. So when they do it, it doesn't let them, but it also puts up a warning that tells them why it's not letting them, probably. Address an issue with the time to payment type for the main bank and the agency, which in some instances were not correctly showing short and long times until payout. Did they fix the grill and the retribution? I don't think so. Fix an issue where accept and withdraw buttons for the corporation invitation in my application subtabs were missing. That felt like that would be a big deal. Fix an issue where the agent mission buttons on the info panel were not showing correctly. Fix an issue that caused incorrect warning to when adding filaments to a fitting. It is now possible to drag character names into the name field when creating a contract. This is another one of those, like, most people don't know that, like, didn't catch this, but basically it used to be that when you drop the name in, it would just put in the name, like the actual text, such that when you hit OK, it would still like search for the name. Like, for instance, my alt Mortis Astarte has there's another character named Astarte Mortis. So anytime I try to send something to Mortis Astarte, it asks me if I mean the two, one or the other, unless I'm searching for exact. Now I believe that if I just drag and drop it in, it should just work. Yes, they did really forget to seed the blueprints for the compressors. So that is the patch notes. There's a lot to go over. There's a lot to like. And as with always, you are going to have to wait a day for most of the patch to be usable.